Hi, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Data 2.0 conference. We're here at the Mission Bay Conference Center in San Francisco, and I am proud to announce Cathy Casserly, the new CEO of Creative Commons. Cathy, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here as a woman in this startup space. And I would love to have you talk to them about what you announced today with the Creative Commons partnership.
Okay. What I'd like to describe is as Creative Commons enters its second decade, it's been an incredible organization in thinking about, in many ways, the free culture space, music, photography, education. But as we now begin to look into this decade and where we are right now with technology and time, we're really thinking about open data and how we can participate in the open data space, how we can begin to set the standards for open data so that we can allow it to proliferate, and that we can be sure that we can work with the different organizations and companies that are working in data and working in analytics to make sure that we're helpful to the community and what they need as they move ahead.
So why is it important to preserve our rights to open data?
Well, in general, data is knowledge. When we think about it, knowledge is power. Who is the keeper and owner of knowledge and power? Depending on who it's created for, sometimes it's public data, sometimes it's personal health data, which are issues of privacy that I think we all have to work out collectively and think about how we share. We also think about student learning data and what's important for the individual, but how we can learn for the field as we share it and we can aggregate it overall. So I think as we think about data, it's really important to know that we are owners of the data, but that there is a right to share it. There's almost a responsibility to share data that we can all learn from, because we can really move the ball ahead for many significant ways.
And that's an interesting take on a social responsibility to data. And let's talk about, on Thursday last week, the news that broke out about Data.gov and 7 other sites, data-related sites, that are going black by May 31st. Do you have any comments on that, and how do you think we can solve any issues that will revolve around that?
I think the issues around Data.gov are very similar to many of the issues we see in the social network. I would say that in the education space that I've worked in around openness and Creative Commons license, there has been nothing better for it than the downturn of the economy, because it's made us actually think about how we share and how we innovate in ways that don't happen. So it's absolutely horrible news that Data.gov is going black, but I would also say that this is an opportunity for us to make sure that doesn't happen. What are alternative ways we can think about making sure a repository like that is openly available? How can individuals and institutions who make that data available simply become the loaders of the data into a repository? It doesn't have to be a heavyweight system. We can make it lightweight, we can put it in the cloud, but I think all we need now perhaps is some leadership to step in and say, what kind of alternatives can we provide? Because Data.gov provides incredible services and we just won't allow it to step away. So how can we as a community think about what alternatives might happen?
And I believe this is a platform to help discuss those issues and the solutions. And another question, so I learned about Creative Commons by using Wikipedia. And I read an article a few months ago about the contributors to Wikipedia having a low percentage of women contributing. So now you're a woman in head of Creative Commons. What do you think about that, and how can we bring women to help contribute more into technology and social platforms like Wikipedia?
You know, I think perhaps in some ways the reflection of the gender bias in Wikipedia is a reflection of the gender bias perhaps in higher education institutions, which has not always been as receptive to women or to women who want to have families and children and be able to balance their lives. I think as we see the new tech generation and we see how young girls are engaging with social platforms, they're engaging in equal ways as the boys or men have been. And I think it also creates a platform for some of the stereotypical activities that happen in a face-to-face classroom or learned behavior that happens sometimes in a conference, also to change. And so we have a new way of both communicating what we know, and we have a new way of engaging with the social groups around us. So I actually think things will flip in a very significant way. I think this media gives us the opportunity to do that. I think Wikipedia is probably an early leader, but as we see some of the new media activities happening, we're seeing women in there just as fluently as men. And I think the question is just how we make sure that the woman's voice is also at the table.
Great, and how could we do that?
Well, I guess we can continue to have conversations like this.
You can't solve that in one 10-minute conversation with you, right?
Conversation. I think oftentimes there's incentive structures and institutions that do not create an equal playing field. And I guess I've always thought that through my life as well. Even though I'm a PhD in the economics of education, I did not want to go into academia because it would not provide a balance for me as a woman who also wanted to have a family. And the incentive structure just isn't there. So I think as we look at industries, as we look at organizations, as we look at how the world is changing, we have to begin to balance both the needs of men and women, mothers and fathers, parents, single parents, and really think about the broad spectrum. And I think as institutions, we're responsible to do that for our society and for the next generation as well.
Well, thank you so much, Cathy, and keep on rocking, and we support you, and thank you for coming to our conference and sharing your announcement with us.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Stay tuned for more. We have the 5 top startups of our pitch day. Robert Scoble is judging as also with other venture capitalists, and we'll be right back.